So with digital, we have what's called not signal to noise, but signal to error. I like the term. Sounds like a computer, right? Error. All right, what are my two mistakes? One is a human mistake. That's your fault. What'd you do? You said it too loud, and we clipped, right? We can control that one, right? We can control that by setting level, hopefully, right? Tell the drummer, all right, play a little softer or whatever we can do to adjust it. Maybe just turn the preamp down, move the mic away, whatever we got to do to avoid clipping, right? What's the other one? It's a lack of resolution. That's that rounding error. We're going to listen to it here in a minute. That basically there's not enough resolution, so we get this crazy junky stuff. In between there, we got usable signal. So between this quantizing floor and this clipping, we have usable signal. And there isn't really an average level where you should set. We almost kind of have to think in advance like what that should be. So, doing okay? Concept-wise? Yeah? Am I going too quick? No? Okay. All right. Cool. Well, let's listen to it. Let's figure out what quantizing noise is, all right? So kind of going back to that idea of dynamic range, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my drum loop again. That'll work. So I'm going to take the my lo-fi plugin here, and I'm going to start. It doesn't let me do. I'll start at 16 bits, which is what a CD has. Compact discs, they use 16 bits. So here we go. All right. As I lower the resolution, you're going to start hearing this noise appear. Anybody hearing it at 12? Nope. Okay, let me keep going. Here's 10. It's subtle, but there's like this hiss now. Here's 8. Hear the jump? Pretty weird stuff, right? Here's 6. Hear what's happening to the quiet stuff? What's wrong? There's not enough degrees to describe it. Now I'm going to turn my volume down as we go down lower, even though it sounds kind of interesting. Here's 5-bit. Even less, right? 4 bits. 16 degrees, that's it. What's going through? Just the peaks, right? Everything else is silence, right? All we're getting is the kick and the snare hits, right? Here's 3 bits. All right, 2 bits. 4 levels, right? It doesn't let me go to 1 bit. 1 bit's basically on or off, right? So how much difference does it sound going from 4-bit to 5? It's pretty dramatic, right? 1 bit doubles the number of resolution, right? 6 bits, 7 bits. And it starts to open up. For me, it's like, relaxing. There's 16 bits, right? Somebody's asking me, could I go higher? Well, I can go, in this case, to 24. Not really hearing a big difference there. I think the original file is only 16, but let me do another example of that. Let me do it with a piano. What's getting messed up? The quiet levels, right? The lowest levels. So as this piano decays, and we hear the level dropping, let me start really bad here at 2-bit. This is what it's supposed to sound like. Just this big chord, right? All right, so here's 2-bit. Right, not very good. Right, so let me go back. Let me turn out. Let's do 3 bits. All right, that's giving me 8 degrees. It's a pretty big difference. I mean, if you think about it, compared to what it used to be. Let me go one more. Here's 4-bit. Again, 4 bits isn't going to cut it, is it? But it's a lot better than 3. Here's 5. Do you hear that stuff? That's quantizing. It's quantifying. It's like, oh, you're here, you're here, you're here. Bye. All right. You're closest to 0. Bye. All right, here's 6. Dramatically better, right? I mean, not that I'd buy it, but it's better, right? 7 bits. Some people, that sounds kind of cool. Yeah, you're into that kind of industrial thing. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Here's 8 bits, 256 levels. There were samplers that came out at 8-bit. Or commercially available, right? And that's what piano would sound like on it. People are like, what is that crunchy, like, ugh. Yeah, it's pretty gritty stuff, right? Computer audio started at 8-bit, the Sound Blaster card before it became the Sound Blaster 16 and so forth, right? And then we had a big jump. We went up to 9. It's a lot better. I mean, just that minor jump. Here's 10, right? That noise is dropping. Still hear it at 10? Still hear the junk? All right, here's 11. And once I get to 12, I think you guys are in this environment are going to have a hard time hearing it. Still hear the fuzz? Underneath there, here's 12. Starting to disappear, huh? For a lot of people, it's hard to hear. Right? And then again, just listen to how it feels at 16 compared to how it used to feel. I'm like, relaxing. It's like open and feels like, yeah, it's just a lot easier to work with and so forth. And again, I can jump all the way to 24-bit and so what happens is the quiet stuff, unfortunately, doesn't have enough degrees, so it gets rounded, right? So how often are we using 8-bit anymore? We're not. It's very, very rare. Today we're using 16-bit. That's what CDs use. And then in other situations, we're doing some recordings at 24-bit. You might say, well, what's the advantage? It's the quiet stuff, man. The big difference is for the quiet levels, those nuances down there. They're not getting rounded out of existence. Yeah. You used the term bit rate, and I kind of avoid that term in this discussion. No, it's okay. But a lot of people confuse the two. And bit rates are literally like how many bits per second we're shoving down a pipe, which is like again, video or MP3s and things like that. Maybe you heard of 128 kilobits or 256 kilobits. Here we're doing every sample, so many. So I'm just specifying on that. But it won't be hardly anything to do with frequencies at this point. That's all in the samples. And literally they just mean two different things. This is all about dynamic range. So at 24 bits, you should in general capture more of that stuff. Again, a lot of high frequencies are usually quieter frequencies in general. And then the question comes up, which we'll come into in a minute, is like, well, if I bother to record at 24 bits, what's the big advantage of that when I have to put it on a CD? And CDs can only hold 16 bits. Well, we can actually do something called dithering, which can help with that process. I switched over probably about 5 years ago, switching from 16-bit to 24-bit. And what I noticed is just the amount of dynamic range. It was really, I thought, easier to mix, to actually have room to fit stuff. I always felt like I was like shoving stuff into 16 bits and everything had to be really loud. And I don't know, that whole volume war you might have heard of, in the late 90s and so forth, which I'm hoping eventually will turn the corner on. But basically, of everything being really, really loud, it's kind of a dumb thing. When you come down to it, there's zero. You can't go over it. It's like everybody's fighting to get closest to the end of the plank. By the time you get to the end of it, you're just going to fall off. There's no, there's a Dr. Dre CD that came out a couple years ago that literally clips. Do we want to give that to somebody's home system that actually is making their CD players clip? It's kind of a weird thing, just to be a little bit louder. It's kind of a strange scale when you think about it. So let me go back to talking about dynamic range real quick. So again, going back to degrees, what does that relate to in dynamic range, an actual measurement of dynamic range? Again, I'm used to talking to these guys that are really, really super technical, but basically every bit doubles the degrees of resolution. Every bit will also give you 6 decibels of additional dynamic range, which is a pretty big change. Again, it's a doubling. So 4 bits would provide 24 decibels. Is that good? From 0 to minus 24. No, it was awful, right? It was just pure noise all the time. It was bad, right? That quantizing noise is so loud. So 8-bit was dramatically better at minus 48, but still kind of noisy, right? 12-bit is when the SP12, SP1200, a lot of hip hop guys are into those things. I remember Korg having a sampler in that. A lot of studio electronics came out at 12-bit. They were okay. 72 decibels is about, that's one of the biggest problems analog equipment has, is the hiss, the noise floor that we have in this environment. So this was approaching that quality. CDs were amazing at 16 bits when they came out. 96 decibels of dynamic range from 0 to minus 96. Why do I say it's amazing? That's how they marketed them. They still market it that way today, right? Crystal clear digital sound, right? They're just like, that's what they're talking about, is saying, you hit play, what do you hear? Nothing. Right? You don't hear a hiss, you don't hear, vinyl noise or whatever it is.